Tom, how did the Descendants start?
We're just a group of guys working out of a bike shop here in Adelaide and in the old Taylor Honda around Gilbert Street that just started hooning around town on motorbikes in those early days, and there were a number of other clubs that already existed, so we just thought we'd put together our own bunch of mates and form our own club, which we did, and that was in mid-74, and here we are 36 and a bit years later. We're still going along.
So you say you're the oldest existing club?
Well, we're the old existing club that's left here. There were a number of clubs that had started a year or two before us. They've morphed into other clubs, or they've discontinued at some stage. But yeah, we're the oldest existing club that's originally from South Australia and has maintained that presence here.
And did you get into a bit of trouble in those early days?
Yeah. We were banging it up with the best of them, roaring around and living up to the stereotype that's attributed to us. So we were playing right into that caper.
How did that happen?
Well, we're all 18, 19, so getting out and about and rooting, tooting and shooting and scrapping and chasing skirt and all that's all just a part of the normal 18, 19-year-old. No different than what a 19-year-old footballer crew's doing on a footy trip. No different whatsoever. But because of the times, and funnily enough then a government initiative starting a bikie squad back in the mid-70s, all of a sudden we had all these police all over us that somehow our particular method of choice of lifestyle was now under police attention, and they're booting our door in and roughing us up and carrying on like the old dodgy style of squad copper did in those days. And so, we become very anti-police and very anti-authority in those formative years because of the attention we were getting purely because of the lifestyle we chose. Much like a Collingwood supporter, I suppose. Yeah.
And so you got into, the club members got into a fair bit of trouble?
Yeah, look, just, normal stuff. Assaults, fighting, and then you sort of end up in the court system and the prison system. So there's a natural progression to different types of crime because of your associations. You form friends when you're in that court system and prison system. Your mates start to become people that are deeply entrenched in that, and so there's a sort of a seeping of criminality that comes through your whole group just purely through friendship. You just take on what your mates are doing, and so we had that for a while, and most members, not all, but most members ended up in various degrees of trouble. But, we grew out of it. It was a passing thing. Clubs still have that now, but as I said, you tolerate. We tolerate. And if we see a good bloke for being a good bloke, and he's a good friend to us, much like a good cousin or a good uncle or a good nephew is, what he gets up to is his business. He'll pay that price. He'll go to court. He'll go to jail. He'll do all of that. And we will be there to help him when he gets out, and we will visit him while he's there, and we'll, go around and feed his dog and look after his motorcycle while he's paying that price. But for us to cut him loose would be like cutting a son or a mother loose if they get up to some mischief. No one does that to their family, and we operate as a wider, broader family concept.
So does that make a motorcycle gang a criminal gang?
It makes it very easy to be labelled one. That's the problem. We can very easily be labelled a criminal gang because we support our members that get themselves into trouble with everything else except their criminal activity. And that can be easily misread or easily misconstrued or easily manipulated to look like we're actually involving ourselves in it, much the same as a arch criminal's mother or father or brother or sister could be involved in that criminal act, but more often than not aren't. And more often than not it isn't construed that they are. But with us, it's a different thing. If one of our members does something wrong, it apparently is on behalf of the whole club, signed off on, officiated and all discussed, and it's all worked out, and it's nothing of the sort ever happens. People do things on their own bat. Same in normal society, same in all families. And if you get yourself into trouble, then you get yourself out of it. The club will support you, in that they will help with costs, they will help with everything that needs to be done as a family would, but it doesn't necessarily imply that you're necessarily acted conspiratorial with them, and that's the very easy part for us to be attacked by governments with agendas, is that most people don't seem to accept them unless it's their own family, then they accept it.
So what do you what would you say to people who say that are worried about bike clubs? What would you say to them?
Well, I think there's far more things to be worried about. We're a highly visible target. We don't hide. We wear patches that display who we are. We ride motorcycles that are customised and often loud. We habitate clubhouses that are well known and well visited by the police. So there's nothing secretive or mischievous or mysterious about us per se. So the public's perception is mainly built out of media reporting, movies, and lots of other stuff, whereas when you look at the actual statistics, you look at police statistics, gang crime in Australia takes up 0.06 of all crime, and that includes ethnic crime, street gang crime, and so all the experts say that motorcycle group crime would be less than half of that. So we're talking 0.03 of all crime can be attributed to motorcyclists, and often motorcycle stats are injected with friends and associates misbehaviour as being club members when in fact they're not. So it's probably more like 1%. 0.01% of all crime comes from motorcycle clubs. So you would think that doesn't pose much of a threat to the average bloke in the street, but it's certainly not the image that's portrayed.
Bike club members get accused of intimidation and all that sort of thing. Does that happen? Yeah,
look, all the things that bike clubs have been accused of, you would think over the years have happened in 1s and 2s, 3s and 4s perhaps. Whether that means that everybody's involved is a fair stretch. It's a fair stretch. If one guy in a football club goes burlesque and gets in a fight or has unwilling sex with a young lady throwing herself at a famous footballer, does that label the whole team as sex offenders? There's one priest who gets convicted for mischievous, deviant sexual crimes against young people in his church. Does that label the whole church? Of course it doesn't. And unfortunately, we don't get that. We don't get the benefit of those percentages. If one of us do something, then all of us must have been in on it, approved of it, and probably did it too. Funny how no one else gets those percentages thrown at them. Often our members are kids that have grown into adults with no real family as such. A good couple of parents as role models or a good family unit. So they end up coming to us, not probably for that, but just because they end up in a world that is likely to end up near us, and they see the family unit, they see the brotherhood, and they see the support, and they see the lack of judgment that we place on each other, despite whatever behaviour someone gets up to. Like a family member, you might have a cousin that's a bit of a rascal during the year, but he's still welcome at your table on Christmas Day, and we operate under that regimen, and for a lot of people that's the only time in their lives they've actually been accepted and tolerated, and quite often when they get over that and become a part of our groups, there's actually a lot of good in them, and the good gets a chance to come out as opposed to the negatives they've been running with because of their background. So that's something that we know, but we'd never get any credit for it.
And in your club, you have quite a few senior members now, I guess, that perform that sort of role.
We're a good mix. We're a good mix. Senior members, middle order, 10, 15, 20-year members, and even a lot of sons. I've got 4 sons in the club, so that family sort of method that we all use, has become to be real in many clubs. There's many father-son combinations in motorcycle clubs around Australia now that they're all approaching 40 years of age or more.
Government still maintains that motorcycle gangs are predominantly criminal gangs. What's your response to that?
It's proven in statistics that when 0.03% is motorcycle, so they're going for a small minority. And I'm not saying that there isn't any violence in the odd punch-up or whatever and what sort of stuff, but that happens in any footy club, cricket club, anybody there's a few drinks and all sort of stuff, so I can't speak of that.
So you say that the gang is not focused on sort of doing criminal...
Not at all. I own 3 businesses. I work. I've had 2 business meetings this morning, and I'll continue to have more later on this afternoon.
And do other members of the club, do they do similar type stuff?
Yep, they certainly do. They drive trucks, or they'll work as a mechanic, or just like the ordinary bloke.
What does a
motorcycle club mean to you, though? I mean,
it meant for me brotherhood. At the moment, I was at that time I was a little bit lost. I found some blokes that took me under their wing and really supported me. I don't drink alcohol since I've joined the club. I do not touch drugs, and that's been for 10 years now. So basically, it's been a godsend for me.